I want to take a look at the internet cable. You see there's a internet connection here, and that has to be wired. I'm going to use this connection here. Up and over it goes to the router up there. Welcome to 3D Accuracy, where I'll talk about 3D printing, 3D product design, and 3D injection and die-cast mold design. So I need to connect this 3D printer to the router, and I also have to repair this cable. It's damaged. It's got a couple of spots where it was damaged. You can see right there. So what I'm going to do is measure out the bad spot, cut it, and I'll cut this off where it's still good, and then I'll peel the outer protective cladding there and reconnect all the wires. I'm going to get rid of these this damaged spot, and I'll just solder all these wires back together and make a good cable out of it again. But I got to get up there on the ladder and feed that through that little eyelet. I just have that in there to hold it up and out of the way. But what I want to do is, once I get it connected, is then zip tie it along with these and come down the back and then attach to the machine. And then I'm going to take this cable, and I opened it up a little bit to get the wires out. There's eight individual wires that need to be cut and resoldered. So what I'm going to do is, where the cable is damaged, I'm just going to cut it off at the end of the damage on both places and then just solder it back together. But before I do that, you see I've got a bundle of cable right up there on top the Fortus 250. That's plugged into the router already, but I'm thinking I want to open that, unspool all that, and make sure I have enough cable to go from here up, over, down, back to the machine before I spend time trying to fix it. Because if I fix it and I'm 2 feet short and I can't get to the machine, I have to go buy another cable anyway, so why bother? So one step at a time. Let's measure this out first, make sure what I'm going to have is long enough to do what I need to do. I have the network cable sitting up there next to the router, runs up there all the way along the ceiling, comes back down on this side, and I have a whole bunch of wire left. And all I have to do from this point is run down to the floor over to the machine. So I'm sure I have enough. This is going to be definitely going to be enough. I only have to cut out roughly 18 inches of it in order to repair it, so that's not a big deal. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, fix that cable, and then we can plug the machine in. The 3D printer, we can plug it into the 3D printer, and when we fire it up, then I'll see if I can get the network hooked up. But one step at a time. Let's get the repair done on the cable first. Yesterday, repaired this network cable that I want to plug into the Fortus 400mc, and I have all the wires, all the connections made. Now I just have to solder them so that I have good connections, and then reposition all that so I can tape it, close it up, and make it good. So that's one step in the right direction, because I need to get this printer talking to that router up there so that I can see it on the computer and I can actually send files to it. So once I get that done, then I'm going to route the wire up and over to the router, and then the next time I turn this machine on, I can see about setting up the network connection so that I can see the machine. All the wires are now soldered together, so this part's finished. Now I just have to tape those up so that they don't touch each other, and then I can bundle this cable with some electrical tape, wrap it up, and then ready to use it. Have all the solder connections taped up, and now I'll just tape all that down in a little neat bundle, and then it will be finished. Okay, all finished. Salvaged this nice long network cable so I don't have to buy another one because there's quite a bit of cable there. And it just took out the bad spot, patched it together, and it should work. Okay, now let's string it up through the shop and get it connected to the Fortus 400mc. I'm out in the shop just getting the cable hung along the ceiling for the Fortus 400mc behind me. Get it connected to the router so that next time I turn this machine on, I can get the settings all set up so the computer will talk to the machine and I can send it files. So let me show you what that's looking like. See, I just have the cable connected to the back of the machine laying on the floor temporarily. What I'll do later on when I push this machine back in when I'm done working on it is I'll coil the wire in the back and then reach back in there and plug it in so the wire is all wound up in a nice spot. This gives me the flexibility of being able to move the machine from the wall and work on it without having to disconnect it. So anyway, it's just running up behind here and it's along there and it's right to that point, and then it's just all hanging across on the top of this 3D printer, and I just have to continue along the line, down the pole, over to the router. So I'm going to do that and then I'll show you what that looks like. There we go. The network cable is all tucked up along with the electrical wires up there. And you can see when it gets to this point, it'll drop down this pole. All the cable is sitting up on top of the 3D printer and it's connected to the router. So I'm going to temporarily leave this like this because I have a couple other cables that need to come up to the electrical outlet, the plug from the Connex 500. And once I have this machine up and running and all rebuilt, and I bring these wires up here along this pole, I have some black zip ties and I'll zip them to the pole so that it's all tucked up nice and neat and it looks good, and it's no cables and wires and power cords to trip over. Everything's up over my head. Okay, so the next step is to test it and get it connected to the printer. Almost forgot to mention that I did receive some comments and questions when I posted a short video of repairing this network cable, and people were asking questions about whether it would affect the speed of the transfer of data or whether it would expose it to electromagnetic interference, and I don't believe so. I don't think soldering the wires together is going to affect the speed because it's a good connection. And as far as the EMI is concerned, the electromagnetic interference, I checked the wires and you'll see here there is no foil cladding in there, nothing in the outer sheath here that protects us. There's nothing in there. It's just extruded over the wires, and the wires themselves, I slit one of these open and there is no EMI shielding of any sort that I can see. So I don't believe I've created a situation where I've made the cable worse than it was before and it's going to be detrimental. But then again, I'm not an expert at this. This is not something I do for a living. So the only thing that I can really do is, now that I have the wire or the cable repaired and I have it up in position and connected to the machine, connected to the router, is when I turn it on to test it and see how it performs. As long as I get the data transfer from the computer to the printer, typically what happens on these Stratasys machines is when you build a part, you send the file from the computer, you process it, send it to the 3D printer, and it takes all the data at one time in one download. And so the file is completely on the computer at that point, and you can actually disconnect the network cable, it doesn't really need it anymore. The only thing it does is transfer status data on the build, so it lets you know what layer it's building, how much more time it has to finish the build, that sort of thing. But it's not like transferring tons of information back and forth while it's printing. No, it doesn't work like that for these machines. So I don't believe it's going to be an issue, but if it is, I'll just pull that cable out and go buy a new one. So one step at a time, we'll figure it out, right? Okay, so just wanted to make that clear in case anybody was wondering about that. But that's all I know for now until we test it. I hope you really enjoyed this video. If you're ever in need of 3D product design, 3D injection mold design, 3D die-cast mold design, or 3D printed prototypes or production parts, please feel free to contact me. You can find contact information in the video description. I look forward to hearing from you and to being of service to you. Thank you for watching. As always, I appreciate it. See you on 3D Accuracy's next video.